I'm a 25-year-old female. I've been having problems with depression on and off since I was 13. I thought I'd tell you about my suicide attempt. It failed, obviously. Something for which I am becoming more and more grateful as I recover from this episode of depression. I'm not going to go into the why of it. The why boils down to clinical depression and the very destructive thought patterns that are associated with such. One day, I attempted to kill myself by injecting 1,600 units of Novolog, rapid-acting insulin, into 16 separate sites on my body. I used different sites because I'd read that a bolus can be excised surgically if they find your limp, twitching, or comatose body in time. I used Novolog, or rapid-acting insulin, because it was what I had on hand. I'm a type 1 diabetic using an insulin pump. For reference, my typical daily use is about 40 to 50 units of insulin, which is of course spread out over a 24-hour period each day. I gave myself the insulin at around 10:30 in the morning. Rapid-acting insulins, such as Novolog and Humalog, tend to peak in around 2 hours, so I was anticipating waking up dead, sorry, figure of speech, before noon. I was hoping that sheer amount of insulin would be enough to cause a hypoglycemic coma and death fairly rapidly. I didn't use my pump to give it to myself because I judged it would just take too long and be too much trouble. I pulled out all the insulin syringes I had in the house. This happened to be 16 100 IU syringes. Pop, pop, pop. One in my stomach, one in my thigh, one in the back of my arm, one in my hip. I picked sites randomly, all the places that a diabetic can use to inject her insulin daily. Only the first one was scary. The next 15 were methodical. I didn't even feel like it was me doing it. I was sitting back and watching this girl give herself a huge overdose. After injecting the insulin, I went to sleep. This was terribly easy, as I hadn't really been out of bed in 2 days. I was exhausted, and I fell asleep right away. I left the empty bottles and recapped syringes on my nightstand. Let everybody else figure it out. My suicide note was short and barely even qualified as such. I wasn't even sure that anyone would recognize it as a suicide note. I woke up a little after noon, about 1.5 hours after giving myself the insulin, shaking, covered in sweat, and having a very typical hyperglycemic episode. What the fuck? Now I was scared. How had 1,600 units of rapid-acting insulin not killed me? Fearing that I was going to end up brain damaged rather than dead, I called my mother and told her what I'd done. She said she was calling 911 and hung up on me. I got up and ate some glucose tablets and, of all things, a scone. It's what was there. I unlocked my front door and went back to bed. 2 police officers knocked on my door, but I didn't get up. They let themselves in and assured themselves that I was docile. An EMT followed. She didn't believe that I'd given myself that much insulin. I didn't care. I didn't need a stretcher. I walked to the ambulance. In the ER, I was given 10% dextrose by IV for 6 hours. I'm not sure that the doctors believed me at first, but when my blood glucose level failed to rise after 3 50cc syringes of pure dex added to the original dextrose by IV, I think they might have started to believe. This was not intended to be a gesture or mere attempt. I was honestly intending to die. It didn't work.